Hey everybody, it's Kevin Kwan with the Kevin Kwan Real Estate Group. I know the marketplace is going crazy again. We have a little discussion or a little roundtable discussion that we're going to go through today. I have Tony Ng here with us, who's going to be a moderator, who's going to discuss or talk a little bit about the topic that we have on hand today.
Absolutely.
Tony?
Thanks, Kevin. You know, with the house market being at its all-time high, many home buyers, myself included, is considering selling. So I wanted to understand, right, what is the biggest mistake a homeowner makes when they're trying to put their house onto the market? So let me go to Mark first. What do you think is one of the biggest mistake a homeowner face or makes when they're trying to sell a home?
Yeah. So I think you bring up some good points there, Tony, about, we are in a seller's market. Everyone kind of knows that. Everyone knows that it's like relatively easy to sell, right? I mean, you put in your house on the market, it's going to sell within a couple of days. You don't really have to do much. But I think what we've noticed in our team is that there are certain things. Honestly, there's probably some small things that you could do as a seller that could greatly increase your chances of just getting more money, just getting more return. And so I think the first thing is just preparing your home. And I think it's one of the simplest things too, but it's often overlooked as well. When we're doing our listing presentation, we really split it up into two parts. I think there's like the things that you could actually do with the home itself, and then the things that we need to do to, present it to the actual buyers. It's a two-part process, really, when buyers are looking at homes. They're first looking online, of course. That's going to be the first go-to. And then that's going to attract them to come through the doors. And then it's actually them going into the home and then actually seeing it in person. So, the first thing that we're doing is, it's obviously going to be, when we're consulting with sellers, the first thing we're going to tell them to do is, prepare the home the best that they can, first and foremost. So we're looking at, mainly decluttering. That one I'd just say is like a given. We often tell sellers too, you're going to have to be cleaning up anyways, if you're really serious about selling the place. So you might as well just start going ahead with that process. To me, I think that's just like the number one mistake when I'm going through the MLS and I'm looking at photos. Maybe you guys will probably agree with me as well too. We just see homes that are they're still a mess. There's so many things that just could have been cleaned up, just kind of been put away. And, anyone can probably testify to the fact that when you see a dirty home, it's just not going to look as attractive. So I would say that's probably the easiest thing. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say there's probably like a rule of thumb out there, or a number that always kind of gets thrown out in terms of, how many seconds you have to really impress or put a impression on any buyer walking into a property. And it's always been around like 8 seconds. And, usually you have literally 8 seconds to make that home buyer feel like that is their home when they first walk through that front door. And I think if the property's messy, there's things still laying around, things aren't tidied or nice and tidy, it does throw the buyer off a little bit, because I just feel like whenever I do go show properties and buyers walk into a house and they're like, they look at that, they're like, oh, I got to do that now. It kind of adds to what the buyer has to do in order to move in, rather than let's paint this beautiful picture of you can move literally right in, and that may even require, I feel like, the seller doing some minor repairs just to even get the property on the market, on top of like decluttering and stuff like that as well too.
Yeah, I think
I see a lot of home sellers stage is their homes for selling. Can you guys share a little bit about that? What staging, how important that is, and is it something that we have to do or should do?
Yeah, so that was the next thing that I was going to bring up. Obviously with the decluttering and doing maybe some minor repair work, we're talking about a very small investment there, just time and maybe a couple $100 to get a handyman to come out and do some like patch up work, or like some touch up with the painting. The next step would then be staging, and we often advise our sellers to do this. And that's only because every home, well, every homeowner has their own personal taste and style, I would say. And, some people really do care about interior design. And I would say majority of people are a little bit more lax. They're just kind of choosing things out of comfort, not necessarily out of aesthetic appeal. And so, one of the ways that you can improve that is through staging. There's many different forms of staging too. I think this is where, maybe it's not necessarily clear for a lot of sellers. I think a lot of sellers, when they hear the word staging, they think of, oh, I have to like move all of my furniture out of the house and they're going to bring in they're basically going to redesign my entire property, which you can, we would call that pretty much a full stage. But there's also what we call partial staging, where they might bring in a few pieces to basically add on to whatever furniture you have there. As well as, I've seen even stagers that just come in and rearrange whatever furniture you have in the home as well too. So there's many different, there's many different price ranges for the staging, as well as, how much work they'll be doing as well too. But it makes a world of a difference, I would say.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Tony, I think that's a really good example that you brought up. Like, does staging work? Does it really help? I think the best case that we have just recently, we closed a deal, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Downtown LA, one of the toughest real estate markets since COVID. I mean, COVID has, lit real estate on fire ever since, the pandemic started. Interest rates came down and people just went on a buying splurge. A lot of people decided to move out of downtown LA because people wanted more space. I mean, with COVID, people didn't want to be near each other anymore. So I feel like, at least in our LA market, downtown LA got hit the hardest. I mean, you have the riots go through there, the homeless problem down there. I mean, it's just not a pretty place to be. But we had a seller that wanted to list their property in that building. I want to say on average time frame for property to sell in there was about 70 plus days. I think it was like 77, somewhere in that ballpark. We listed the property. We said, hey, I think we need to stage because there's other properties in the building that are for sale. Those just did virtual staging, which might be another topic of discussion. But we decided, hey, look, I think it's better to spend the money to actually stage the property because it's going to make the pictures look better. And then also remember that 8 seconds when the buyer comes in and looks at a property, we want to make them feel like they're at home. We were able to sell that in just a little bit over 2 weeks. We got full asking. So a lot of times people are going to say, well, I don't want to spend the money to, get the property ready. But I mean, take, for example, if we sold that in about 2 weeks, the average is taking about 70 plus days. You're looking at close to almost 3 months. Imagine those mortgage payments that you're making on the property. You're actually saving money by paying for the staging. Plus, we're able to get at least list price on the home compared to the other ones where I want to say it was like 96% of list price to sold price. It was somewhere in that range where, in the exact same building, we're talking the same exact units. What we did differently was we staged it, right? So yeah, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but now the seller is saving time, and that's going to help towards additional payments that they would normally have to pay on their mortgage.
And how much does it typically cost to stage a house, like an apartment that you're speaking of?
It's really going to range. So if somebody's going to be living in there, we do a partial stage. It could just be a few thousand. If we're just staging like the main areas, like the kitchen, the dining, a living room, and 1 bedroom, for the most part, you're probably looking under 3,000. But if you're going to go full stage and stage everything inside the house, it really will depend on how big the house is as well too. But if we do most of the simple properties with just like living room, the dining, kitchen, and like a master bedroom, it could probably range in like 3,000 to 4,000 in that range. Yeah.